All right, so we're going to look at how to multiply decimals today. And we're going to go ahead and read through the steps. If you look here, we have 4.32 times 0.4. And we're going to multiply it. I can multiply decimals. The first thing, step 1, that we are going to do is rewrite the problem without the decimals. So I'm going to come over here and write 432. All I did was take out the decimal times 4. Now, the 0 in front isn't really going to make a difference. I just need to remember that there is a decimal place in front of the 4. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do, step 2, is we're just going to multiply. So 2 times 4, 8. 4 times 3 is 12 plus the 1. 4 times 4 is 16 plus 1 is 17. So we get 1,728. Now I'm going to look at step 3. Step 3 says to count the total number of decimal digits in the problem. Now what that means is there was one here. So we're going to count the numbers actually behind the decimal. So we have 1, 2, and 3. So we have 2 here, 1, 2, and we have another 1 here. So that means I need to move my decimal a total of 3 times because there's 2 decimal places up top and there's 1 decimal place on the bottom. So that's a total of 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm always going to start in the back. That's where my decimal's home is. And I'm going to move it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that would make my final answer 1 and 728 thousandths, or an easy way to say it, 1.728. So you give your answer the same number of decimal digits. Okay, let's practice that again. We're going to rewrite the number without the decimal places. So I'm going to put 124 times 35. Okay, all I did was take out decimal places. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 2 is 12. 5 times 1 plus 1 is 6. Don't forget your placeholder. I like to put an X there. Some of y'all put 0. Same thing. We're putting something with no value. Okay, now I'm done with the 5. So now I'm going to multiply 3 with every number up top. I'm going to scratch these out because that was with the 5. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. And 3 times 1 is 3. Now I'm going to add it up. We got 0, 4, 13, and 5. Okay, now that I've multiplied, I'm going to count how many numbers are actually behind the decimal here. So I'm going to count. There's 1 for this number, and there's 1 for this number. So 1 and 1 together make 2. That means I need to put my decimal at the end now and move it over twice. So 1, 2. My final answer would be 53.40. Okay? I'm going to show that again. Step 1. We're going to take out the decimals. We're going to act like they're not even there. So we're going to do 14, which is my first number here. Remember, parentheses is a sign of multiplication. So we'll parentheses with nothing in between. Our invisible operation is multiplication times 8. So 4 times 8 is 32. Carry over my 3. 8 times 1 is 8 plus 3 is 11. Okay, so I multiplied like normal. Now I need to count how many numbers are actually behind the decimal. And if we look here, there's no decimal places in the 14, so that would be 0. Then here we have 1, 2 numbers behind the decimal in the second number. So I know now I'm always going to put my decimal in the back, and I'm going to move it over 2 times. So 1, 2. And now I found the new home of my decimal. So this decimal moved over, and my final answer is 1.12. So it's just like multiplying. The only difference is where are you going to put that decimal? Okay? Next one, we'll try that again. Gonna go ahead and write it, and we have 556. All I did was take out the decimal, and I'm gonna multiply by 4. So I'm taking the same exact numbers, I'm just ignoring the decimal for just a moment, right? 6 times 4 is 24. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is also 22. Okay, now that I've multiplied like normal, what you're used to, we're now going to count how many numbers are behind a decimal. That's how many decimal places there are. If we look at 55.6, 6 is the only number behind the decimal. So there's 1 decimal place in the first number. And then in the second number, we have 2 decimal places because there's 2 numbers behind the decimal. So 1 and 2 all together, we need to give back 3 decimal places to our final number. So we're going to always put it behind the last number. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3. And now I found the new home for my decimal. Remember, numbers only get 1 decimal. They can't have 2. So where you move it, that's your final spot. So my answer is going to be 2.224. Okay, last one. All right, so it says 7N. Remember, when there's nothing between the number and the letter, which is also known as the variable, when there's nothing between the number and the variable, we're going to multiply. So I'm going to basically rewrite it. We're going to do 7 times N. And over here it says if N is 2.5. So I'm going to put 2.5. And now I'm going to follow my steps when multiplying. I'm going to rewrite this without the decimal. I like putting the number with more digits up top, so I'm going to put 25 up top. And I'm going to multiply it by 7. And now I'm just going to simply multiply. 5 times 7 is 35. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 3 is 17. Okay, now that I've multiplied like normal, pretending that there's no decimals, I'm now going to go back and count how many numbers are behind the decimal. In 7, there is no decimal places, so this would be 0. Over here, we only have 1 number behind the decimal, so we would say 1. So in my final product, my answer to a multiplication problem, I'm going to move the decimal over 1 time. So I'm always going to start in the very back and move the decimal over once. And my final product would be 17.5 or 17 and 5 tenths.